You are here with By the Cover. Today we're going to be reviewing Holly by Stephen King. This book was 449 pages and took me 4 days to read. I would rate this book a 6 out of 10. This review will contain mild spoilers, so if you don't want to hear those, click off now. Holly is a return to form to being detective story-centric, as opposed to having a blend of the detective story with the supernatural. So people that just like the detective aspect will be happier with this book. As far as my likes, anything to do with the primary plot line I thought was absolutely awesome. And that is the plot line that focuses on the two antagonists that are in this book. I absolutely loved the antagonists. I thought it was creepy and original, and I haven't seen it done previously. All of the interactions between the antagonists and their victims I thought were really well done. The ending of this book was very satisfying, and I also loved the Holly family drama and getting to see more of her backstory with her family. As far as my dislikes of the book, this book focused heavily on the COVID era, and there's a lot of political discussion and divide within this book around themes like vaccines and wearing masks. I personally hate when current day politics are dragged into fiction books. I was less okay with this at the beginning of the book, but I was okay with it at the end of the book. And the reason for that is Stephen King uses this as a device to show the way that different family members think and kind of coming together despite that. I wish he'd picked a different plot device to do that, but it is what it is. If that's going to trigger you and put you off of the book completely, then I'd suggest just not reading it. But if you can kind of look past that and see the bigger story, then this is certainly a decent addition to the Holly Gibney books that I'd suggest reading, even if it's just for the primary plot line. But overall, the reason that this book gets marked down for me is bad pacing. I don't know why Stephen King did this. I have no clue, but he decided to take Barbara's character and make her a poet. And that's fine, but I would rather see that in some other type of book aside from a murder detective story. It just does not fit. I don't want to go from high stakes chapters about victims about to be killed, Holly doing detective work and trying to find killers, and then switch to Barbara trying to figure out what words to use in a poem, or worrying about some old lady and what she thinks of her poetry, and getting just so emotional about what somebody says about her poetry. It's such a jarring contrast to be in kind of a thriller book and then switch to poetry. It just does not work for me. I don't personally have any interest in poetry or developing writing. It's not something that appeals to me at all. Every single Barbara chapter that came up, I just rolled my eyes. It's not that I don't like Barbara as a character. I just think that we picked something really boring for her to do in this one. And the other thing that killed 2/3 of this book for me was Stephen King gets into a very, very, very repetitive cycle of Holly Gibney doing interviews. Then we go on a side quest. That could be Barbara poetry or it could be Holly Gibney family stuff. Then they'll have the trio do a conversation. That may be Jerome, Holly, and Barbara, or it could be any one of them just talking with the other ones. And then they come to some revelation based on their conversation. And then that cycle repeats over and over. More interviews, side quest, trio conversation. Interview, side quest, trio conversation. The antagonists in this book are left out of a huge portion of it. And it just was boring, predictable, and boring. I hated it. So the combination of the Barbara plotline being quite a large chunk of this book, being bored to death with poetry, and then doing the repetitive cycle of interviews, side quests, and conversations between the three protagonists takes this book, unfortunately, even with an absolutely killer primary plotline, you have so much fluff in this book, it just brings it down to an average book for me. I think if this book would have been 200 pages shorter, it would have been a better book. So Never Flinch comes out at the end of this month. I've heard that it features Isabel and Holly Gibney. I've never been a fan of Isabel, but I won't hold that against the book. I'll still give it a try. But I really, really hope that Stephen King hasn't continued this cycle that he got into in this book of the interviews, because that's just not going to appeal to me. So I am looking forward to reading the book. I hope it brings something fresh and new. That's about all I've got. Catch you later.